My license plate frame reads, he was my son, and his name was Darren. So let me explain. I spent many years on the south side of Chicago, raising my two children, both boys, as a single mother. Kevin, who was the oldest, and Darren, who's the youngest. Kevin spent years in my home. They both learned the same thing. They both knew me very well. Kevin went off to school in the late 90s and studied engineering at the University of Illinois. Darren, who was 7 years his junior, for some reason at some point began to stray. It started with shoplifting, small things like candy and condoms. Then he went into bringing marijuana to school. Those behaviors escalated and he began to become criminally involved. Didn't take long, a few minor arrests here and there, and then in the late 2000s, early 2000s, he was arrested and spent time in prison on a gun charge. In the summer of 2012, I got a phone call that no mother ever wants to receive. Darren had been killed in a drug deal that had gone awry. Started out as a robbery, and shots were fired. And when the dust cleared, my son's body laid in the driveway. The next day, a newspaper article in the local newspaper, Southtown Star, ran a headline that said, "Man from Park Forest shot to death, had felony and weapon convictions." And it wasn't until the second paragraph of that actual article that they actually referred to my son by his name. I found that amazing. I found it troubling. Nothing that was written in that article was inaccurate. But what I knew was that it was incomplete. It was a lazy, narrow perspective on who my son actually was. Just like many newspaper articles that share the stories of the experiences of violence in the communities, typically identify young black youth as gang involved, or they feel it necessary to bring to the forefront that this person had a criminal background. And I felt as though it was imperative to reclaim Darren's narrative in that particular instance of his life. I refused as his mother. I refused then and I refuse today, which is why I'm here, to allow the entirety of his life to be defined by one single moment. It's time we slow down. It's time we take a breath. It's time that we look behind the headlines and the things that we think we know. It's time that we begin to see the humanity in those who have lost their lives and those who have been left behind. I had the amazing opportunity very recently to have a discussion at Adler University with best-selling author and journalist Alex Kotlowitz. And during that conversation, Alex asked me a question. In that conversation, we talked about our shared humanity and our shared love and our belief in the power of storytelling. And so Alex asked me a question in that conversation, and the question was simply, what would I want people to know about Darren? My answer was easy. I just wanted them to know that he was a human being. I wanted people to know that he was a human being living his life through his flaws, just like the rest of us. He was a human being living his life through his broken spaces, just like the rest of us. And that it was important for us to understand that all of us are more than the worst thing that we've ever done or experienced. He was a full, rich, complicated young man, and I simply refused to allow this one experience of his life to define the entirety of his life. Let me tell you a little bit about Darren. His favorite dish was peach cobbler. He loved documentaries on the Discovery Channel. And his love for me made me just a little bit happier about being Lisa Daniels. His face lit up when I came in the room. It's hard to explain a mother's love and the bond between a mother and son, but we had it. When he became 11, he began playing football for a Pop Warner League. And for the next 6 years, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, we were in some football field, in some stadium, watching him light up the field and doing what he loved to do. One of the most exciting times I remember was when his oldest son was born. I was there for the birth of my oldest grandson. And he was amazed. And he was so happy to be a father. He's since had another child, a daughter. And so there are two amazing young people that are the legacy of Darren Easterling. He enjoyed being a father. He enjoyed playing football. He enjoyed being a son. He enjoyed his family. The story doesn't end there. There's a young man that is also incorporated in this story, and his name is Michael Reed. And he is a young man who was convicted of my son's murder. The case was in discovery for 4 years. In 2016, I got a call from the state's attorney's office explaining that there was a very real possibility that this case wasn't going to be winnable. And that was a hard hit for me. She went on to explain that the witnesses were no longer cooperating and that it had been so much time that had gone by that the stories had changed, and that I had to be pretty comfortable with the fact that this probably wasn't going to be a victory, as she called it. She asked me if I'd be interested in a plea agreement, if I'd be okay, I think would be a better way to describe it, with a plea agreement being offered. So this was a challenge for me. Not because I didn't think it was enough time, not because I didn't think that it was justified, or not that I didn't think that if he did receive or accept this offer that justice wouldn't be served. That wasn't my thing. That wasn't my issue. My challenge was with me, because I had come into a new space in my life where I believed in forgiveness and I believed in restoration. I believed in restorative justice. And I had to ask myself, how could I believe that for my son, for his narrative to be changed and rewritten and the humanity in him to be exemplified in everything, and not believe that for Michael Reed? So once I got my head together and I got my mind wrapped around what was actually getting ready to happen, I agreed. My response was simply, if I get the opportunity to give a victim impact statement, I'll be okay with whatever you do. We moved forward. The plea agreement was second-degree murder at 15 years. And the offer was accepted. And so I got the opportunity to say to him and his family, I forgive you. That I don't blame you for what happened to Darren. That I hold Darren completely accountable for the act that cost him his life. So I prepared my statement, and that day in court I was sworn in and I sat in the jury box and I read these words. I'm a mother, And I only get to speak from a mother's heart. And in this case, there are a couple of things that I know for sure. Although I wasn't there on the day that this thing took place, July 22nd, 2012, my son was shot and killed. I know two things for sure. One, that Darren didn't deserve to die that day for making the worst decision of his entire life. And this young man, Your Honor, does not deserve to spend another day, another year, another minute behind bars for making the worst mistake of his as well. This could have easily have gone in the other direction, and I would have wanted someone to be sitting in this seat speaking on behalf of my son. But Darren's name is spoken for. Today, I speak for Michael Reed, and it is my hope and my prayer that you'll take this opportunity and use any discretion that is available to you and show this young man leniency. And he did. So that 15 years that was originally agreed upon was actually reduced by 50%. And with 4 years considered served, Michael Reed had 3 years remaining on his sentence. And it blesses me, warms my heart to say that on March 27th of this year, he was released from prison. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that we all forgive or that we all take on the task of rewriting our narratives. Both are at the very minimum challenging at best. Ask me how I know. But what I understand for sure is that when we fail to do either or both, we position ourselves to be held hostage by our experiences. And as you can probably imagine, the act of losing my youngest son to a single act of violence has changed the entire trajectory of my life. It has positioned me to become, amongst other things, a storyteller. And what I understand about the power of stories is that they may not change or eliminate gun violence or any kind of violence for that matter, at least not immediately. But here's what they do. Here's what they will do. They establish human connection. They create a space for us to heal and to become connected by our experiences. And when we do that, we position ourselves to know one another in a way that we've never known each other before. And we understand that we are all more alike than we could ever possibly be different. And then we look at each other differently. And then we begin to treat each other differently. And so what I know is that the shortest distance between any two people is a story. Thank you.